Geez, I wish we could go earlier in the program. We have to follow. We have to follow the big boss, my boss. We have to follow the first undersecretary of MBDA. So, but we're up for it.
We are.
Because we're going to talk about entrepreneurship and equality within entrepreneurship. I'm Tom Sullivan. I'm the Chamber's small business guy, and I'm honored to be speaking with two officials from not small businesses, but businesses that are committed to bridging the inequality gap when it comes to creating entrepreneurship, creating diverse small businesses, and helping those small businesses grow. So this is an exciting opportunity. I just introduced myself. We're going to go through a quick round of self-introductions and then just dive into how each of these incredible companies that are represented here today are making a commitment to close the equity divide.
Jackie Taylor, very nice to be here today. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm a partner in Ernst & Young in our government and public sector practice. I also serve as the executive sponsor for our Entrepreneur Access Network, and I lead the efforts in Atlanta, and I was a former leader of the New Jersey efforts. So,
excellent. Thank you.
And hello, my name is Yvette Stevens. I am Vice President of Economic Inclusion for Gilbane Building Company. And for those of you who don't know about Gilbane Building Company, we are a construction management firm. We are headquartered in Providence, Rhode Island, where we have about 3,000 employees, about $6.5 billion of revenue. And my role there is to make sure we're maximizing participation of our small and diverse businesses. So that means whether a contractor or a client requests that we have participation or not, we want to make sure that that's a priority for us within our industry.
Well, thank you, both of you. And Yvette, let's start with you. We'll keep it simple, and then we'll start digging a little bit deeper into some of these activities. But just real quick, how is Gilbane expanding investment in minority entrepreneurship?
I'd say we're really focused in two ways. So one, we made a commitment of $4 billion to generate that much over the next 5 years for our small and diverse firms, actually for diverse firms. And I say that specifically because we took out the word small when it came to that commitment, because our focus really is to ensure that we provide those opportunities to organizations where we've seen that there's been a true disparity across the country. And so what that means is that we had to internally first focus on how we do business. So we didn't want this to just be a number. We wanted to ensure that this was a way in which we do business and we ensure that contractors are getting those opportunities on all of our projects. So from the way we procure our projects to how we do outreach, to how we even outline our bid packages. We wanted to ensure that that commitment was known and that we use our processes and procedures to ensure that that happens.
Thank you. Jackie, same question to you. How is EY expanding opportunities for minority entrepreneurs?
Right. So one of the things about probably 5 years ago that we recognized is we did some research and just reinforced the issue that there's a huge disparity for Black and Latinx business owners in business. So 3 years ago, we launched our Entrepreneur Access Network program, and we recognized that there were major things that were missing. One was capital or cash, right? The other thing was capacity building, and then the other piece were connections or access. So our Entrepreneur Access Network is a national program where we work with Black and Latino business owners to grow and scale their business. There's curriculum, and then there's also the value of connectivity to partners and leaders within the firm to function as one-to-one advisors, coaching them, mentoring them, but more importantly, making connections to industry executives to join the supply chain, to others to learn about how to do business with government to expand their portfolio, or just how to manage a strategic alliance and make sure there's a synergy to grow your business.
You know, the previous discussion focused a lot about intentional networking. And when you talk about the Entrepreneurship Access Network, it's easier just EAN. So EAN.
Okay, we'll use EAN from there. Okay.
You talked a little bit about how EY, which sponsors the Entrepreneur of the Year, how that network of some of the most remarkable men and women entrepreneurs in the United States, how that dovetails into what you're building through EAN, which is very intentional networking. Can you expand a little bit about the connectivity between one of the world's leading entrepreneurship recognition networks and what you're building with EAN?
Yeah, and I love that you've found that connectivity. It is aspirational. So many people do know us from our EOY global program and the value that we've been able to have with many household names before they were household names. And so many of our entrepreneurs to us represent the pipeline. So working with them when they are 2+ years in the maturity stages, figuring out how to take a 97% of Black businesses that are sole proprietorships to actually having employees, to leading, to growing and scaling your business, getting them to that point where there's consistent revenue, there's a growth strategy, and then making them a viable candidate for our EOY program. I think the other piece of it is more brass tacks locally. I'm actually on the New Jersey Black Chamber of Commerce Foundation. And one of the things that we did in New Jersey was we made sure that there were deliberate connections being made between the entrepreneurs who were part of the cohort and folks like John Harmon at the Black Chamber of Commerce or Tom Bracken at the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce. So they understood the value, that it was more than just getting the rubber chicken and attending an event, but how do you make connections and maximize those relationships? And that's really what the value has been.
And Yvette, I saw you nodding during particular parts of Jackie's response. And in particular, I sensed some enthusiasm about how you're taking folks within your program. So with Gilbane, for instance, you have the commitment, but then you also have what the Rising Contractor program that seems to mirror what Jackie was talking about as far as building capacity within existing companies. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Exactly. I think it was two things you said. One about the building capacity, and then the other part about the relationships. Because I feel like and not even just feel like, I know that if it's not about the relationships, then it never happens. You know, and you think about it this way. So, you know, where you get your hair done, whether you going to a barbershop or you going to a beauty salon, right? You don't just trust anybody. You know, you want to go to the people that you know. And in construction, a lot of times it's the same way. We keep going to the same contractors that we know over and over again. So we have to be intentional about the fact that we want to go to other contractors and give other contractors an opportunity. And so it's that same mindset and that same thinking of why we created the Gilbane Rising Contractor program. One, so that we can first build those relationships. And second, to make sure that we are helping companies to grow and develop. And so through our program, it is an 8-week training portion where we teach things like how to get pre-qualified with us, how to do a proposal, how to do your own business development. But then really, sometimes I see after the 8 weeks is the real important part, right? Because you get a mentor. And that mentor is there to help to guide you, to get you on opportunities. If you have an issue maybe with how to do a change order on one of our contracts, right? Someone to sit down with you and to go through that with you. I think one of the best rewarding things I actually seen is 2 contractors in the program actually meeting up together and getting on the contract together. You know, so it's not even just what happens in the relationships that they build with us, but it's the relationships that they build together that I see actually is of benefit to it. And one thing that we tell people too, so if one of our contractors in the program ends up wanting to work with one of our competitors on a project, we're like, that's great. And we go and we'll introduce them to that and actually be able to be that reference for them. So for us, it's larger than just, hey, Gilbane's trying to get these contractors because they're trying to reach this number. No, we're really trying to make sure that we're bringing more contractors into the fold so that they have that sustainable growth and development, so that they can provide for their families, so that we have great success in the community. And as Suzanne said earlier, it's the smart thing to do.
And you know, the programs are so complementary.
Yes.
Because I look at Gilbane, 4 years, right? Generational. Started out as a family-owned business. We were talking about it earlier. That's what we want for our entrepreneurs.
That's
so
right.
many of the businesses that we're mentoring are first-generation entrepreneurs. So they didn't get the benefit of having a grandparent or a parent
right.
say, let me impart these nuggets to you. Let me make sure that you avoid the pitfalls that we did. So they are literally starting from square one. So when you have programs like this that not only provide the training and the support, but then also serve as an exemplar to what it looks like to have generational wealth, I mean, to me, that's hitting the jackpot, right?
That's right.
Well, not only that, but I would suspect that there are a number of folks here in the room and watching online who are thinking, this sounds fantastic. I've got to get in these programs. I've got to get in EAN. I've got to get in Gilbane's program. And I can assure you that the team here at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is going to follow up with anyone who registered for this session with the contact information so that you can take advantage of some of this tremendous information that's being shared. So Jackie, Yvette shared just like that wonderful moment where she saw two contractors coming together and bidding on a project together. There must be similar moments that you've seen with some of the EAN cohorts as they've come through. Could you share a couple with us?
I'm happy to. Those are the types of things that keep our advisors wanting to do this. They volunteer, right? The leaders in our firm volunteer to take on a business to mentor. We've had examples of one of our EAN entrepreneurs actually during COVID became a vendor to EY and subbed to us for rental assistance work that we were doing. As you guys know, there was the administration of the rental assistance, but a big component of that was the communication to the community. Where here we had a local business, I think the prior panel talked about it, there is value in getting local small businesses. We had a local business who understood the nuances of communication, they understood the methods of communication, how to get the word out best. So we partnered with them, and that was super successful. In fact, it helped us ensure that one of those cities gave out like 100% of their ERAP funds. That was great, and it was mission-oriented work that this business is super proud of. And she's now taken that qual to do more work with government. So those are the types of things that we want to see happen. And now she's got teams. We talk about capacity building, but there is a difference from getting a supplier contract and getting on the supply chain and getting the revenue, and being wise enough to translate a contract into capacity building that you can then leverage for additional revenue. That's the rub.
And that capacity building, Yvette, is critical in the Rising Contractor program.
It is.
And I think the question I had for you is that here in Washington, D.C., when we talk about the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the billions of dollars that are going, I'm curious about how many folks come into your system saying, well, there's all this money out there, how do I work with you to get these contracts? And you probably advise them like, hey, slow your roll a little bit here. Like, let's get you into the system. Let's talk about capacity building. How long does that process take? When you're starting with a legitimate and capable company, how long does that process take where you feel as though they have built the capacity to handle some pretty tremendous contracts?
I'm actually going to say that's on a case-by-case basis, but that's a good thing, right? Yeah. Because every contractor that comes to, at least to our Gilbane Rising Contractor program, well, just that works with Gilbane is not on the same level, right? So that's when I talked about it's important to have that mentorship piece, because we want to make sure that we're not pushing folks, further along than maybe they are, or also making sure that we're, stifling their growth as well. So that's why I like it that, and Jackie, one of the things you talked about is that the folks within your organization volunteer to do the work, right? Because it's like you start to see where this becomes more of a cultural change for your organization and not just something that we do or you're hiring somebody to do or paying someone to do just so for the look of it. It's not, one thing we like to emphasize, it's that it's impact over optics. Right, so it's not just about, hey, we want people to look at Gilbane and think that we're doing something. We put out this $4 billion number, right? Are we actually making that impact? So we really like to ensure that we are looking at it at a case-by-case basis and doing the right thing by each company based on where they are. And I think it's very important to meet people where they are. One of the things in the Rising Contractor program that I've heard from some companies, they're like, look, Yvette, we're past that. I don't need you to teach me how to do a change order or how to bid on a project. I've done that, right? So what can you do to provide me some support to grow my business? It could be a $10 million company already that wants to get to $20 million. And so that's when we look at it and say, okay, how can we provide some mentorship for that growth and development? And I'll be honest with you, so we have 3,000 employees, and I'll tell you, most of us have never run a business, right? So it's different. It's a different level of advice that you need to give to those types of businesses. So what we do is we do a lot of partnering with other organizations, with other firms who have been through the program, or those who are at a different level than some of the firms that may go through our program to say, hey, how about we team you up to help provide that support that may be beyond, where we can provide that support to you as an organization.
When you talk about access, I just want to, I've heard a lot of our businesses that we mentor ask, whether it's ARPA dollars or even grants and incentives. We hear there's money out there, especially post, the tipping point. We hear there's funding out there. How do we even access? Where do we look? They don't do this for a living, right? They don't search for grants or loans. They don't understand those. So I think a big piece of it that I hear you saying also is teaching them where these resources reside. There is no central repository for it, right? So showing them where those resources reside and then holding their hands a little bit to help them access that and be ready for it.
So all three of us in our professional roles benefit from interacting every day with small businesses. We're hearing their successes. Sometimes we hear about their failures and always absorbing lessons. And so just to close out this session, I would love one piece of advice from each of you to entrepreneurs and other small businesses that you may have learned from either a cohort or the Rising Contractor program.
I could start us out.
Okay.
I think one of the things, and I try to impart that on additional cohorts as we go through it, is understanding that of all of our programs and all of the things that we provide, understanding how to compartmentalize so you get value from it. So often you have the EY program, the Goldman Sachs program, JP Morgan, et cetera, and they almost like, the Girl Scout badges where they get like they almost get kind of like rack them up. I've been through all the things. I've gone through all the programs. And so I'm super deliberate around getting value. Some are mentorship based, are strictly mentorship based. Others are financially based, so you will get a grant or some lump sum of money or access to money at the end. Others, like EY, may cross-section but are more relationship-based. Be thoughtful around the value that you're going to get from that program prior to engaging, and make it part of an overall plan that you have for your business. So that that's a lot of time, right? 8 weeks, a year, several hours a week. Just ensure that you're intentional about how you manage your time and the value you get from the programs we're providing.
Really good advice. Yvette?
I'd say know your business and be able to articulate that to others to make sure that you can sell yourself well. I'm going to use an example. There is an entrepreneur, I believe she's in the room. Her name is Lisa Williams, and she probably doesn't know how much I admire her. But she works with Gilbane quite a bit. She owns Cap 8 doors and provides doors and hardwares for us as an organization. And even before I got into this work, I heard about Lisa and the work that she does, right? Because she portrays herself as, I am the owner of this business, I know my work, I know my worth, and I know what I should be going after and the jobs maybe that I shouldn't be going after. And I think that confidence, as well as that business acumen, has gotten her a long way. I know especially with us as Gilbane and wanting her to be able to work on our projects. But as well as, I see her out in the community. It seems like every time I am somewhere, she's there as well. So it's something about having that strength and knowledge of your business, understanding what it is that you do, and being able to articulate that and showing up, right? So when you're on the job, do the job well, and making sure that folks understand that and seeing that success along the way.
Well, thank you, Yvette, and thank you, Jackie. Please join me in thanking this incredible panel.